Hello and welcome back to another episode of Screen Tested. I am your host Tyrant, where we take things from movies, TV shows, pop culture, try to create them in the real world and test them one to one from the media they come from. Now in today's episode we're going to be taking a look at a sword. Now some of you may know or may not know that it's literally my job to deal with swords and destroy them and test them. And in today's episode I wanted to take a look at a specific type of katana, and that is the sakabato, or the reverse edge katana. Most predominantly seen in something like Ruroni Kenshin, the anime, where the main character has basically a sakabato, reverse edge katana, because he doesn't want to kill people. But if the situation really demands it, he can flip the katana around and use the sharp edge. Now I think we are going to get well in the weeds in today's episode, because I feel like there's so much to cover and so much that I want to talk about. Right, but I do think what we'll do for the testing is we'll test the sakabato on its own, then we'll compare it to something like a regular katana, and then lastly we might throw in like a double-edged blade just for the sake of it. Now I'm going to be as objective as humanly possible, but at the same time it's also I'm going to have my work cut out for me trying to explain things today, because there's a lot to go through and it's difficult to explain how something might feel in the hand, right? But I will try my best, and with all that out of the way, let's get started. Let's go cut some things. So something that has really bothered me about the sakabato, or reverse edge katana, is actually how it would be made. Now, the one that we're going to be testing in today's episode is spring steel through hardened, so we're not going to have any issues with that. However, I have tested a lot of katanas and I've broken a lot of katanas, and specifically things like differentially hardened blades. Now what do you do with the sakabato, especially if we're talking in the context of the anime? You use that blunt edge to hit, meaning it would instantly snap if it was traditionally made. Now when it comes to actually using today's one, because it is a spring steel blade, it is through hardened, it will be fine. Here is a reverse edge katana, or a sakabato. Now, this is how you would, traditionally have your katana, and you would pull it out, maybe do some draw cuts. The problem is, if I do that, the edge is down here and I will slice myself. So, for this particular katana, you need to hold it this way, and then I'm able to draw it out. Now, what do I think about that right off the bat? Well, when it comes to katanas, right, one of the biggest, one of the most fun, aesthetic, and I would say the beauty of a katana is being able to do some draw cuts. So this katana here is one that I actually designed, and it has my name engraved on it, which is pretty cool. So with a normal katana like this one, I would want to draw it out and cut. But with the other one, with the reverse edge katana, you can't really do that. So what we have to do, hold it like this. But the problem is, when I draw it out, that's the blunt edge. This here is not the cutting edge. So how would I draw it out and at the same time cut? I feel like, first off, that's the biggest detriment, because would I want to draw it out this way? It's cutting right into the saya. Now sayas are a little bit different from sheaths, so that's not ideal. And see, the problem is if I try and draw it out and cut it like this, because the curve goes against the saya, when I'm pulling it, it's actually making contact inside the saya. So right off the bat, draw cuts with something like this are a little bit tricky, which is something that is actually uniquely present with something like this. You can actually do draw cuts with these, just like that. So it's not something unique to katanas. However, because of this very unique cutting edge, because we're cutting like this, it actually makes draw cuts a little bit dicey. That feels very strange to hold it like that. I don't know if I like it. Ooh, now that was interesting. The amount of force I felt right here. Ooh, that was nice. Ooh, you hear that sound that's making? All right, let me just quickly cut this down to size. Oh, I cut that a little bit short. All right, how does it feel to move it around though? Interesting. So the interesting dynamic here is when you actually swing to cut, right? Let's just say I'm cutting here. Because on a regular sword, like a straight sword or even a curved sword, you can bend your hands like this and do a bit of a draw cut. With this one, the problem is because it faces forward. Even though it's a shallow curve, it still does face forward. It means that you're gonna get stuck in your target and it makes it a lot harder. So with this one, you kind of need to muscle your way through more than anything else. However, when it comes to a regular katana, when you hit, that curve aids in the cutting. Same thing with a straight sword. When you hit, you can bend your hand and all of a sudden you have a drawing cut motion, right? With the other one, because that curve is facing forward, when you hit, it kind of can get driven into the target, and bending your arm like this doesn't do anything. It doesn't feel as smooth or as clean. It feels more like a cleaving action rather than a slicing action. So let's use the regular katana and see how that feels. There's always one. So the regular katana feels absolutely beautiful. I mean, there's not really anything too different or spectacular about that. That was kind of expected right from the beginning. So now let's try a double-edged sword, right? Because they're a little bit different. So how does this one feel to cut with? That felt beautiful. That was beautiful. This is my new sword here, so I wanted to try it out. That's why I brought it for the comparison. Just before we continue with today's episode, I wanted to show you this. This here is the ultimate guidebook to rebuilding civilization by hungry minds. Bit of a mouthful. This book here is something that I've actually really wanted on a personal level for at least a year now. I've had it on my to-buy list. I just never got around to it. So when they reached out and said, hey, we'll send you one, you better believe I was very excited about that. It has a whole bunch of different contents in it from all different aspects of life: medicine, plants, animals, food, materials, tools, building, mechanics, optics, electricity, sailing, aviation, industry, military, everyday life, word, art, music, human, games, and the list goes on. There's a lot of stuff in here that I find absolutely fascinating. I'm a big fan of this type of book that'll give you kind of a general rundown. It's not going to give you like super specifics, but it makes it kind of consumable for the everyday person, which I like. It also has an absolutely beautiful, perfect. It has an absolutely beautiful art style that's actually kind of reminiscent of my own, which I really enjoy. So if you want to pick one of these up, there will be a link down below. You can use screen tested 10 and it should give you a bit of a discount. So with that being said, thank you Hungry Minds. I genuinely recommend this book. It is awesome, especially if you like this type of stuff. I'm a big fan of this. It's a lot bigger than I originally thought it was when I was looking at buying one. I thought they were a bit smaller, but I guess you get a whole bunch more book for your buck. So now we've done some preliminary cutting with all the swords. I can confidently say they all feel a little bit different. First off, a double-edged sword. This feels very much like you are cutting through things. You are chopping through things, if you will. Then when it comes to the katana, this feels like you are slicing through things. These two, both very, very good. This one feels very different and very unique. It's kind of an interesting experience. Something that I guess that would... the closest weapon that I can think of the top of my memory that I've actually cut with that felt very similar was the sickles, the death sickles from a previous episode. That's kind of what this one feels like. It feels like I'm concentrating so much energy on a forward-facing curve. The only difference is this isn't very an aggressive curve, right? It's relatively shallow when it comes to curves. So you're kind of getting, I would say, a benefit of being able to concentrate that force there, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's cutting very cleanly or very nicely. But those are just some initial thoughts. Let's get to some water bottles. Next up, we'll do the katana. I'll do a draw cut for this one because I like doing draw cuts. I don't want to resheath that with water on it. Ohayo, yoroshiku Tyrant-san. Subscribe desu. Ja ne. So let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of this blunt edge, because honestly speaking, if you hit someone with this blunt edge, you're going to do some damage. I don't think anybody's disputing that. Like I said earlier, there is the huge issue that if this was traditionally made, hitting on this back edge would snap this in half. But because this is spring steel, this is a through hardened blade, we don't have that issue. As a non-lethal alternative, I don't think the term is non-lethal anymore. I think it's, what is it, less lethal or less than non-lethal? I don't know what the term is. Anyway, when it comes to actually doing this, I can understand why in the anime, like Ruroni Kenshin, the character motivations it can make sense for. One of the biggest drawbacks I think about this weapon is if this was to hit another hard surface. For example, this was to clash with another blade. Because you're able to put a lot more force into the top half of this blade and really drive it home, I think if this was to hit another hard surface, there would be a large chance of snapping this blade in half, simply because you're just able to put so much more force than you regularly would with a normal sword. Just one of those things where maybe one day we'll test it, maybe one day we'll cut one of these in half, but I've got an inkling that these things are probably not easy to break, but they're a lot more prone to it. That's the way I'll describe it. So what about thrusting? Because there's a little bit of a caveat that I haven't brought up yet, and that is, this is basically the same geometry as a Wolverine claw. Like, this is almost identical, they're just a lot shorter. Well, when it comes to something like a straight sword, you want to be able to align that point with the tip so that you can reduce flex as much as possible. When it comes to a katana, they're a little bit different because they are curved, but you can still thrust like a beast with it. So what about thrusting with this one? Well, that's actually what I'm about to try next, because I actually have no idea how this is going to feel to thrust. So let's do some thrusting with it. That was not bad at all. Okay. I thought that there would be a bit of an issue with getting that point on, but honestly, if I aim for that there, that is pretty good. So when it comes to thrusting with a katana, similar sort of thing. Didn't go through. What the f***? This is a brand new sword, and this is freshly sharpened as well. Huh, what do you know? All right, let's try this with a straight sword. It felt pretty good. I would still say that the sakabato actually felt better still. I do think that was deeper though. So let's try the sakabato one more time, because it felt really, really nice. So I just want to see if that was maybe a fluke or not, but. So what is the final verdict on the Ruroni Kenshin reverse edge katana? Well, this one's a bit of a mixed bag. Now, I feel like I'm happy that I gave this a second chance, because I do think my mind has been changed a little bit. The last time I used one of these, I swung one of these around, I didn't like it. This time was a little bit different. I think that there's some virtues here, and I think it's an interesting weapon. However, there will be some caveats to all of that. So first off, in terms of slashing and cutting, it's not the best at it. It doesn't feel amazing. For example, I think the katana is still a better option, or even something like a long sword or a straight sword. I think that they are better at cutting and slashing. However, this one can generate quite a lot of power right up here, right at that tip. It can do some damage. So that is a positive. It's just one of those things where I don't think I would personally choose that or prefer that. When it comes to thrusting, it was actually better than all the others, honestly. Now, this was very good at thrusting. It is a straight sword. There is some issues in terms of like a skill issue, I guess we will say, when it comes to straight swords, because if you're kind of off, you're not going to have a good time. With katanas, they're kind of okay at thrusting. They're not terrible, but I wouldn't pick a katana for its thrusting capabilities. I would definitely go with a long sword over it, right? This was better than both. This was actually fucking crazy when it came to thrusting, which I did not expect. I thought it was just going to be mid at best. I actually really liked how this felt in the thrust. So that is definitely a point towards it, right? In terms of using this as a sword, well, I think it's time we get into Tyrant's initial thoughts score, or TITS for short, the TITS rating. In terms of the design, I don't really have an issue with it. The only issue that I have with it is the fact that it's a single-edged weapon. I will go for a double-edged weapon 10 out of 10 times. A katana on this sort of scale would be a 9. This is an 8. That's fair, that's reasonable. I don't think it's as good as a katana, but it is still right up there. Next up, effectiveness. This one's nice and simple. 9 out of 10 for effectiveness. Incredibly effective, works well. I mean, it's on par with most other swords. Next up, wieldability. Now this is the interesting one. This is the one where maybe we might have a little bit of a spirited debate in the comments. I don't know. I'm gonna have to give this a 7. And the reason why I'm gonna give this a 7 is because a katana is simply better when it comes to things like draw cuts. Draw cuts with a katana are, first off, not only really fun, but they're also kind of effective, and they're very good. This you can't, it's really hard to do a draw cut with this. Like there's not really a way to effectively do, especially to the level of this, even something like a straight edge sword. This is better at draw cutting than this. This one is like way down the bottom. So things like that when it comes to wieldability, I've got to knock it down a couple of points. So like I said, it's around about a 7. So when it comes to comfort, now the last one, 10 out of 10. This is, it's a katana. Katanas are one of the most comfortable swords to use. The construction method of the handle is, if anything gets over 35 or 36 points on the, the TITS score, we're gonna slap one of these seals on. It is the screen-tested seal of approval. That's the seal. All right. I thought I should explain what that is. It's identical to a katana. You have pins that hold it to the tang that can absorb shock. It has a nice thick wrap around it. 10 out of 10 for comfort. It's awesome. So that gives us a final rating of 34 out of 40. That's pretty good, especially since, like, this one's an interesting one because it is kind of a fantasy weapon, but not really. Like, it's from an anime, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure there is like a historical example, at least to the best of my knowledge. Let me know in the comments. So it's pretty good. It's a functional sword. I just think the drawbacks of it are comparing it to like a regular katana or even a double-edged sword. I just don't think it's as good, but it's still good. That's my main takeaway from this. Thank you guys for watching. I genuinely hope you enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below what you thought of today's episode. And remember, if you want to support this channel and support this type of content that I make, you can become a channel member and get access to behind the scenes videos, exclusive videos. All of it helps out. But thanks for watching, guys. And as always, I'll see you in another video. Have a good one.